Welcome back to Clean for Profit. Guys, we're going to talk real quick today about 4 different ways to build your cleaning business. And I wanted to talk about this because I think that a lot of people just sort of fall into one of these categories without really thinking about it intentionally. And I want to get more into the how behind growing your business in one of these ways, because there's certainly some pitfalls to all of them, and there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And I've learned a little bit about both of those things, especially over this last season with the amount of growth that we've had. We're going to probably 4x, maybe 5x what we did last year. And so, anyways, I just wanted to talk about some of these different ways. So, I mean, number one is the most obvious, and that's the solo operator. That's where a lot of you guys are. It's where most of us start out. This is the situation where you're wearing every single hat in the business. You are the accountant and window cleaner and fleet manager and salesperson and quality assurance technician. You're the lead technician. You're the operations manager. You're the dispatcher. You get it. You're responsible for everything because it's just you. So there's a lot of benefits to being a solo operator, to be honest with you. First off, it's lean. It's just you. The overhead is very minimal, very high profits, and you can choose to take on clients that you want to, and choose to not take on clients that you don't want to. There's very little need to take on work that you're not thrilled about. And if you're smart and you take advantage of the fact that you're just one person and your schedule books out pretty rapidly, you can just increase prices when you start to book out. And you can essentially attempt to continue to increase prices as long as you can, as long as you still have enough work, and your hourly rate can go up and up and up as a result of that. And the obvious downsides of this are lack of scalability and just being stuck in the truck, to be honest with you. It's a lot to go out to 100% of your sales appointments if you do in-person estimates and then do all of the window cleaning jobs as well. But for a lot of people, it's the lifestyle that they want. They want a simple life where they're the ones picking up the phone. They're in control of 100% of the quality of 100% of the work that gets done. There's a certain security in that. You can sleep really well, really easily at night, knowing that if you have an upstanding character and you do good work, that you can stand by the work that you're doing. I think I've spent a lot of time as a solo operator. The biggest downside of this, at least for me, is if you're ambitious to any degree, when you spend enough time just having it be you only, there is this point where it just feels like you're not doing much with your life because it's the same exact tasks. It's the same job every single day, and it doesn't change a whole lot, and you're not growing beyond yourself. And so there's definitely some downside to that feeling. At least that's how I felt. And that's why we decided to start growing beyond just that. I wanted it to feel like, we were contributing long term to something that was bigger than any one person at the company. So the next level is like one step beyond that, which is basically solo operator plus. There's not much to this. It's like one person and you hire a helper or two. You're still stuck in the truck largely because helpers need supervision. Like, these are people that are just getting trained. In other trades, they might call them apprentices. But these are employees that you hire that are at the point where they still need hands-on training. They need supervision to be able to complete a job properly. So obviously, there's some pros and cons to this level of business ownership. The obvious pros is that you just have more manpower, so you're able to get more volume of work done in a given day, assuming that your helpers are past the point of being trained on the basics and can work relatively efficiently. And the cons are that you're still tied to the truck, and that your margins are going to be slightly lower. But as a trade-off, because you can do more volume of work, if you have the lead flow and deal flow to be able to justify having a helper or two, you're going to be making more money at the end of the day. The next level is like a big small business, which is where you go from having a couple of helpers to having fully fledged technicians and leads, depending on if you're running 1 or 2 person crews, which have autonomy. So you can schedule a full day of work for them and they can go and execute pretty reliably on that work, with minimal callbacks and with efficient workflows. And, at the point where you have leads, they can go out and there's no real, the questions that they need answered are very infrequent and highly technical if they're needed. But, if you live in a suburban area, the likelihood that they're going to need help is basically non-existent, and they can take ownership of the job site at any given job. So at this point, you are in more of an operations manager position, or higher for that matter, and you have technicians and leads doing the actual physical work. This is kind of what we're working on right now, where, I have a lead technician. He's really solid. I want to get him, uh, you know, fully booked out with another technician so that he can, execute on a full day's worth of work unsupervised. This is where, kind of I won't say passivity because it's not passive, but this is where the business starts to work for you a little bit, and you can elevate or ascend out of the owner operator position to make money that isn't directly tied to you being in the truck. Your job it just depends on to what extent you've gotten people trained so that you can get out of the truck. But at this point, your job is probably sales and marketing, or if you're still in like an operations manager position, you're doing dispatching as well, and maybe some quality assurance here and there if you get a callback. That said, though, it's relatively minimal. I mean, if you have a callback rate of under 3%, you might have a callback once a month if you're doing a high volume of work. And then there's an enterprise scale, which is number 4, which is it's a very much so a large business where you're doing, over a few million a year. And at this level, you have full staff hired out doing all of the admin work. You have sales reps that are out doing estimates or booking work. You've probably hired a marketing agency to run your paid and organic marketing, SEO, etc. And the upsides of this are obviously at this point you stop worrying about paying the bills and you worry more about market share and how you're positioned in your market in general, which is a totally different perspective. If you're a solo operator with helpers, or a big small business even, what you're worried about typically is like your monthly deal flow, what revenue and profits are looking like in that given month. And I mean, let's be real, no matter what size or scale that you're at, you're going to be keeping a pulse. Like, you need to know your numbers on the profit side. But the real question long term becomes, to what extent can we exploit the market that we're in and gobble up as much market share as possible without losing money, and while maintaining relatively healthy margins, so that we can take ownership of the entire market to the best of our ability. You go from helping the rich or people that can afford high-end window cleaning that you price really highly, to asking the question of how can we help the most people possible, so that we can employ more people, get more trucks on the road, and long term, like the long term bet here is that you can secure a valuation for your company that is favorable and either gets bought out by another company or even more commonly today, ends up in a private equity, like in a roll up for a potential huge payout. Um, I'm not an expert on this, but there's plenty of talk in the cleaning space and the blue collar space in general of private equities buying up batches of cleaning companies and using them as part of a roll up. And, that's a potential opportunity where if you have if you have strong enough margins, enough recurring revenue, and your operations are owner independent, you're in a really favorable position for a potential buyout at a really solid multiple. The move of the enterprise, like the play, is essentially a deferred payment for a big payoff in the long term. And there's owners of large cleaning businesses that are doing multiple millions in revenue a year that don't take a paycheck on an annual basis because they're holding out long term for a buyout, which is, I mean, good on them, man. That is freaking awesome. It's certainly a way to go. It, but you definitely need to have a long game, and it's for a select few, I would say. I think the main reason, like I said at the beginning of this episode, why I wanted to make this episode is it's so easy when you are interested in starting a cleaning business, especially a window cleaning or pressure washing business, to just say, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to make a few bucks. It's going to be great. And then you get 10 years down the road and you've kind of just been in that position because it pays good enough. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a solo operator long term, but you want to do it with the right mindset. Like, if you're going to be a solo operator long term, I've been a solo operator pretty long term. We've just now started to kind of grow into something that's beyond just me. It's me plus employees. We're like stepping a foot into the big small business area, sort of. We're gonna probably do three to 350 grand in revenue this year. We'll see. Um, but there's a local competitor, quote unquote. They're not true competition, but it's this guy that's been a solo operator for like 20 years, man. And he's in my market. And I've been underbid by him, I don't know, probably half a dozen times this year, something like that. And it makes me sad every time that I hear that he got the work, not because I wanted the work. I mean, I did, but he charges like a third to half of what we charge, and he's a solo operator, which just kind of sucks for him. Um, I mean, whatever. I guess, if he wants to charge less, that's his prerogative. But, I bid this job for $760 for interior and exterior window cleaning, and I booked it. And then she called a couple of weeks later, said that she booked with this other guy and that he was doing it for $350 or something like that. And it's just like, that bummed me out, man, because we did 44K that month. Um, and like, just don't be the guy that ends up as a solo operator that doesn't charge what he's worth. Cause, he could be making at least a third more, if not double what he's currently charging. And he'd probably still be pretty darn booked out. Cause he's got a popular name. That's the other thing, is this guy's booked out charging no less than 30% less than what he could, making 30% less than what he could be making for the same exact work. And then similarly, like, don't get into Like, don't build an enterprise business if you'd rather be a solo operator. And don't be a solo operator if you'd rather get to a big small business or be at a large scale. Start with the end in mind. I didn't do that for a while. To some extent, it was just like a nice way to make a paycheck. I realized a couple years in that, like, hey, I can either build this out like crazy or I can jack prices. And I jacked prices for a long time and charged a bunch of money. For the last, I don't know, I've been doing this for like 8 years, for the last 6 years or so, excluding this season. I go out solo and I can make about 175 to $250 an hour working at the pace that I work at, which I'm pretty proficient. Um, but that's sweet, man. I can go out and make more than a ton of people make with literally PhDs. um, so I can't do that for 60 hours a week year round. But it's pretty sweet to be able to go out for 5, 6 hours and make $1,000 that day. So, anyways, I just wanted to illuminate this because it sucks to be that guy. Don't be that guy. If you want to be a solo operator, do it, but make it count. And if you want to be a big small business or go the enterprise route and get the heck after it, don't get stuck as a solo operator for longer than you want to. Start with the end in mind and get after it. So this was just kind of an episode to make you aware of all of this if you weren't already. I appreciate all you guys listening. It's been awesome making this podcast and kind of hearing from you guys. This has been Clean for Profit. We'll see you next week.